A few weeks ago, Martina and I were walking on this very street right here, which is only 30 seconds away from our studio, which I could literally see from this spot that I'm sitting at. We were walking with three of our other friends, Angelina, Amanda, and Rose. And you've probably seen Rose in a couple of our videos. She's the web developer over at Eatyourkimchi. Now, as Martina and I were up ahead, Rose was a little bit behind us when a drunk driver pulled out of the parking lot right here and not only hit Rose, but physically drove his wheels over her chest. It was definitely the most traumatic experience that we've ever been through in Korea. It's definitely the most scary. It's something that Martina's still not very comfortable reliving or talking about, which is why I'm doing this video by myself. One of the scariest things that we think about is that if it wasn't Rose that was hit by the car, would have been us because we were so close to her. And the whole point of this video is not to give you all the details about what happened at that moment or what happened afterwards. What I'm trying to do today is talk a little bit about drunk driving in Korea, because the driver of the car that hit Rose and almost killed her was drunk, very drunk in fact. The legal blood alcohol limit in Korea is 0.05. His was 0.138. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the rules of drunk driving in Korea and what the police does in situations of drunk driving. So here are some of the laws about drunk driving in Korea. If your blood alcohol level is between 0.05 and 0.1, then your license is suspended for 100 days. If your blood alcohol is above 0.1, then your license is altogether canceled. There is also the consequence of jail time and fines. So if your blood alcohol level is between 0.1 and 0.19, then you face a jail term of either 1 year or a fine of 5 million won, which is roughly $5,000. However, note that it's not both a fine and going to jail. You could choose one or the other. That's just for drunk driving though. If you actually hit somebody, then the process is entirely different. And I can't give you the exact details about what your punishment will be because that entirely depends on the injury of the person that you hit while drunk driving. There's a much bigger penalty, for example, if you killed somebody while driving drunk as opposed to if you just hurt them. Here's where things get a little bit weird for me as a Canadian. The drunk driver whose blood alcohol level was 0.138, his license isn't suspended. In fact, his car isn't even taken from him. He's free to drive anywhere he wants right now. I could be wrong here, but from what I've been told in Canada, if you get caught with a very high blood alcohol content while driving, then your car is taken away and your license is instantly revoked. In Korea though, this guy is still driving even though he very nearly killed Rose while driving drunk. The police have told us the reason why he still has his car and the reason why he still has his license is because you cannot punish somebody without due process. So once he winds up going to court, then his license can be revoked and then his car can be taken and then he can be fined and go to jail. Also, because the drunk driver was in good standing in which he had paid all of his insurance payments and he's never actually been caught for doing this before, the police didn't view him as a threat, so then they didn't have to arrest him. Now this really made my blood boil. I would figure that he would be arrested instantly and have his car taken away and that he'd never be allowed to drive again. And I thought that this was how things are done in Canada, but supposedly this is only a new thing in Canada. Supposedly back in the 1970s, this was not the case. And if you got caught drunk driving, then you were just given a ticket and sent home. So it seems like Korea at the moment doesn't view drunk driving as that big of an issue, which is where I would like to disagree and give you a little bit of stats about how serious drunk driving is here in Korea. As of 2014, Korea has the second highest traffic fatality rates in the OECD. They are right below Poland and right above the United States. Also, Korea averages 4.1 pedestrian deaths for every 100,000 people, while the average for the rest of the world is 1.4. Korea almost triples that. In fact, the police officer that we spoke with told us that this was the third pedestrian that was hit by a drunk driver that night, not just in Seoul, but just in this district alone. We're not talking about all of Korea either. Just in this district, 3 people were run over by drunk drivers. What's interesting about these stats is that they don't actually show you the complete picture, because since we called the police and we got them involved, we will be part of the statistics. But there are a lot of people that actually handle this out of court without calling the police and just go through the insurances instead. And those numbers aren't necessarily represented in these stats. Supposedly what happens is that when the police aren't called, then the people are paid off privately so that nothing will be shown on the criminal record. As a result, the actual number of people that wind up getting hit by drunk drivers, in my opinion, is probably a lot higher than is reported. Now, there's a few things that I want to say to people living in Seoul. If you plan on going out to drink, don't drive to that location. Who in their right mind would drive to Hongdae on a Saturday night? There's a very high percentage of people that wind up getting drunk here, and you probably know that you're gonna get drunk as well. There's no parking here. The roads are so incredibly narrow. Do not drive here on a Saturday night if you plan on partying. Take a taxi. There are tons of taxis everywhere. These really tiny, crowded streets that have cars everywhere and people walking all the time are very difficult to drive, even when you're sober. Or if you find that you've actually driven here and then unexpectedly started drinking and you need to get home with your car, there is something in Korea called a dairy, which is a designated driver. All you do is you call up the dairy, a person will come here and they will drive you home. They will be completely sober, you will get home safe, it will only cost you $10 or so. $10 is all it costs for you to not crush a girl under your car and to potentially ruin her life and her family's lives forever. If you are in Korea and you have a car, keep this number on speed dial, 1600-6829. I know that Korea is a very big drinking culture and you might be peer pressured into drinking, so just keep this number on you so you could call one of these designated drivers. There is even an app for designated drivers. I'm leaving the URL right here. Install it, click it, get home safe with a clean conscience and not with blood on your hands. And the last thing I want to say is a little bit more directed to Korean people specifically, because there's a bit of a cultural issue at hand. What I didn't wind up saying about the story beforehand is that the drunk driver wasn't actually alone. He was being guided out by his friends who were telling him where to turn. His friends who knew that he was completely drunk, and his friends who knew that he shouldn't drive, yet they didn't stop him from driving. And I think a lot of this has to do with the respect issue in Korea. If you have somebody older than you, you can't really say no to them if they're your hyung. And so, even though they knew that he was drunk, they just guided him along. So while in Canada we have campaigns like Friends Don't Let Friends Drive Drunk, here in Korea, there isn't that much social awareness campaigns when it comes to drunk driving or to saying no to your hyung if he's completely drunk. The problem here is that you have to be respectful of your elders even if they're making a really shitty decision. I don't necessarily know what to say for this last part. Friends should not let other friends drive drunk. Even if they're older than you, even if you have to be respectful of them, it's much better for you to potentially save their lives and save somebody else's lives, some innocent people's lives, just by saying no to your elders. You can do it. It's a severe issue here in Korea, all this drunk driving, and you need to stop it somehow, or at least be a little bit more aware of it. So that's it for this video. I don't want to end this video entirely condemning all of Korea and making you think that everybody's driving around, they're trying to kill you. That's obviously not the case. But I'm also not going to say that I walked away from this experience without feeling a lot darker and a lot sadder about what has happened to our friend and what almost happened to us. What I would like to do is try to open this up to a conversation to see what the drunk driving policies and the laws and maybe some of the stats are like in your country, so we could try to have a more balanced comparative thing rather than us just walking away from this raw and angry and darkened by what was definitely the worst experience that I've had in my entire time here in Korea. Also, thank you for watching this video, for listening to what I had to say, and thank you especially to everybody for all the outpouring of support for Rose as she was recovering. It meant a lot to me, it meant a lot to her, and it meant a lot to her family as well, who's out of the country. Thank you, everyone. And that's it.